Hey everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Before I get into my intro and before I start talking, because this is going to be a little bit of a longer intro, so obligatory, I have chapters on all my videos on this channel. If you're not interested in listening to me talk, that's perfectly fine. Just look at the chapters on the video itself. You can find them in the description. If you're on the podcast, you can find them on the actual progress bar. So if you don't want to listen to me talk, perfectly fine. Go ahead and fast forward to the next chapter and you'll get right to this week's gangster. Now, before I get into my intro, I have recently been made aware that a decent amount of people that have become followers on my channel are under the impression that my entire YouTube channel is devoted solely to my best friend, Billy Donahue, and his murder. While Billy's murder is certainly what motivated me to make a YouTube channel in the first place, to try to build a platform to get people to finally care about his murder after it had been completely swept under the rug for around 7 to 8 years at that time. And while I made the video about his murder, and that video is probably done better than any video I have ever had on my channel, largely because I have continuously paid to promote that particular video, it is certainly not the only thing that my page is centered around. Especially since his case is a cold case, he has had no movement in 9 years. And literally everything that we know was said in that video and put out. I do have some updates, but I can't really say anything at this very moment. But rest assured, it will be coming out soon. Again, if I had no other content, my entire channel would get very boring very quickly. So for anybody that became a follower because of my case about Billy, let me take a moment to reintroduce myself to you guys. My name is Dana Trupiana, and I cover infamous gangsters every week in a true crime-like format. I cover all manner of gangsters, mostly mafia members, but I sprinkle a little bit of serial gangsters, serial killers, all that kind of stuff here and there just to spice it up, but it's very true crime oriented. My show, Mob Times, comes out on Tuesdays, and it's Tuesday, so here I am. As I said, today's going to be a very long intro because I want to talk to you guys about a few things before I start my video. Okay, so something super depressing happened pretty recently, and I wanted to make you guys aware of it because you may see the fallout of it. I have never been under the disillusionment that I was going to turn into some huge YouTube star. It took me like 2 years to get 1,000 followers. I always knew it was going to be a slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, and I would have a strong but small audience / family that would watch my videos, tune into my lives, and support me in any way they could. And that's exactly what I have 2-3 years later. Obviously, anybody out there that's making videos has this little small glimmer of hope that one day a video they make is gonna blow up and become a viral sensation overnight, and they're gonna become a huge YouTube star and an influencer, and they'll get rich and blah, blah, blah. But if you're anything like me, you're realistic, and you know that's probably not gonna happen to like a depressing level, if anything. I'm very self-aware that I'm never gonna be YouTube famous, and that's okay with me. What I did kind of hope was that one day I could turn this into at least like a little side hustle that would pay for itself. Because as I've been telling you guys all along, I pay for this channel through my own money. I don't make any money on this channel at all whatsoever. I had hoped that as my audience grew, I could start doing commercials, I would start selling merch, I would make some money on this channel somehow, and that would just make it easier for me to promote the channel, to grow, because things that you guys don't realize, like if you don't pay to have like a keyword search in place, nobody will ever find your channel. I don't know if everybody on YouTube does it, but I know I certainly do. And if I could make even a little money on this channel to siphon that back into paying for this keyword search thing, it would be amazing. However, any hopes that that would happen were dashed in the last few weeks. And I'm right back to my depressingly realistic outlook that this is just something that I do for fun. And it costs me an arm and a leg, but I love doing it, so I pay it. I had a dose of what being an influencer is really like, and that will never be me. I'm just telling you right now, I will never, ever do that. So I was finally, for the first time, approached by a brand to do a commercial for them. And I was stupid excited. Like, this is what we worked for, people. I have been working for this for years. I'm so excited we finally got here. I'm not going to say what brand this was, but it was the brand ambassador that reached out to me. They didn't work for the brand itself. They were like a middleman, like a marketing company, and they reached out to me because they were looking for social media influencers to promote their brands. So we work out a deal. It's not much, but I'm happy, and it's the first commercial I've ever had. In my brain, this is the beginning of something great. I'll have commercials in the future. It'll all work out. Again, I'm not going to say the name of the brand, but I will say that it's one of those VPN services that offer like internet protection, blah, blah, blah. There's a million of them out there. So I get the script that I'm supposed to read off about how vulnerable I am on the internet and how this VPN service is going to make it all better and protect me and all of that. With the commercial, I get 6 months of this service for free. So I record the commercial, I put it on YouTube unlisted, and I'm trying to go about getting this commercial into my video. Problem number 1 comes because you have to submit this commercial somewhere like 48 hours before you put it up. That's an issue for me because I literally get my videos edited the night before I put them online. But whatever, I'm in the midst of doing the 5-part Angelo Leonardo episode, so I record the commercial and I figure I'll just put it in the next episode. It's fine. But then I find out that you have to submit the entire episode, not just the commercial, to them beforehand. So now because of this confusion, it keeps getting delayed, and I don't actually end up getting the commercial out there. Thank God for that little delay. It was 2 episodes, so 2 weeks that this was delayed purely because I had no idea what I was doing. I had never done any kind of advertising before. I really didn't know what was expected of me or what I had to do. But as it was getting delayed, I started to realize how horrible this product actually was. First of all, it did absolutely nothing that it said it was going to do. I really was actually kind of scared because of how vulnerable my information was online. You can Google me and pretty much find anything about me, phone number, address, everything. This VPN service said that it was supposed to fix that, and that's what I told people in the commercial that it did. Well, thanks to this 2-week delay, I had time to let the service do its job, and the Google search for me was exactly the same at the end of the 2 weeks. None of the services that they said they were going to do, they actually did. So on top of the app not doing what it said it was going to do, I work from home, and this thing was the most annoying thing in the freaking world. Everything I did on my computer, it was popping up and screwing everything up. You know those autofill things? Yeah, it was doing that, but it was doing that in things that didn't need fill. Literally anything I typed, that was popping up, and God forbid you actually hit it. It was so annoying, but in the hopes of protecting my computer and my personal information, I grinned and bared it. I almost fully gave up on it when I started to notice a lag in my internet. I'm not talking just like, oh, I've noticed my internet is a little slower. I'm talking, I'm trying to upload my videos onto YouTube, and it went from taking 15 minutes to 3 days. I ran internet speed tests before and after, and I screenshot it. I'll put them up here. But it got to the point that, like, before I realized it was because of the VPN thing, I had the freaking Verizon guy on the phone. And I was about to switch out my Cat 5 cable, not knowing what was wrong. I thought it was crazy, or the infrastructure of the internet was imploding. I don't know. I knew something was going wrong, though. I realized it was the VPN service that was causing the problem, and I resolved to delete the program later that day, but I was still holding out hope that the problem would correct itself. I knew the problem was because it was bouncing my signal from different directions, so I was hoping it would, fix itself. It would figure it out. It did not. I decided to finally delete it when I was trying to do a bank login for one of my merchants, and the VPN service would not allow me to do it. As soon as I deleted the service, everything went back to normal. My internet speed went back up, I was able to do logins again, I was able to do transfers, and I wasn't getting the irritating pop-ups every time I clicked on literally anything on my computer. I was so happy to be rid of this service, and I could not believe that anybody would actually endorse this thing as a good service. But therein lies the problem. I guarantee you, without a doubt in my mind, there's 50 influencers out there right now selling this to you on what a dream this service is. How it saved their life, how it protected them and helped them and did all these amazing and wonderful things for them. They will sell this product to you because they're being paid to do so. Even though anybody that spent more than a day with this program on the computer quickly realized how bad it actually is and how it doesn't do the job it says it's going to do. The problem is, I have a job. I make a lot of money in my real life, and I don't really need the money that a commercial can bring. And even if I did, I actually like you guys. I don't see you as cash cows or dollar signs. I'm aware that a huge chunk of my audience isn't from the US, which means a lot of the stuff that I would theoretically sell on here wouldn't even be available to a good chunk of my followers. And that doesn't change how I feel at all. My point is, I don't think that I'll ever make it as an influencer because I can't sell you a garbage product and tell you that it's good just because somebody's gonna pay me to do that. It isn't worth it monetarily or morally to me, which means I'll never make it in this business where the only thing that makes you money is being a straight up liar. I also have a bunch of merch for sale, and while that's really cool and another way to make money doing this, I haven't really had a good turnout with that either. So what I'm trying to say is I am perfectly fine just posting sporadically and keeping my job and doing this for like funness and the joy that I get out of having a YouTube channel. I have fun doing this, and I hope you guys are having fun doing it with me, but I don't see myself being able to upload a video every single week and making this like my primary thing because I just don't make money doing it. That is not why I haven't been posting lately. I took about a 2-month, at this point, sabbatical. I was doing some medical stuff. I've talked on here a little bit about the IVF that I've done in the past. I was doing another round. It was an epic fail. I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, I'm back. I'm gonna be posting a lot more now. I have finally fully recovered from the absolute horror that I just went through. And about a month ago, I decided that my next episode was gonna be one of the most famous murderers the United States had ever seen. He died recently, and honestly, I have never seen someone die and the world have the ability to just rake that dead person over the flames immediately, like this dude. And it's all because of his crimes. Like, I saw recently that Neil Patrick Harris recently made a TikTok and he got flamed in the comments. No one will let him live down that in 2011, he made a cake/rib tray and he labeled it as the corpse of Amy Winehouse. Like, yeah, it is not good. It was horrible that he did that. It was brutal looking, and it was actually kind of realistic looking, and he made it 4 months after she died, and he deserves all the backlash that he gets for that. I just find it wild that Neil Patrick Harris, who was once like Hollywood's favorite human being alive, made fun of a dead person, and 13 years later, everyone still hates him for it. But you watch the roast of Tom Brady, which like was recently made, and one of the comedians literally comes out dressed as this recently dead football player and says he had to dress up like him because I'm about to kill a white bitch. And I'm not saying that's not funny, you know, whatever. But the fact that he was able to do that and didn't receive immediate backlash the way that Neil Patrick Harris did says a lot about this person's character and their background and how the public feels about him, that people are able to come 4 or 5 months after he died and make jokes like that, and they're gonna have no backlash from it. So to see the stark difference in the public view and how people are treated when they talk shit about a dead person, a recently dead person, is super interesting. And I wanted to go through the entire crime here and see how I feel and how you guys feel at the end of it. If I hate him the same way that I always did, if maybe my opinion would change and I think maybe somebody else did it. I don't know. Let's talk about it. Let's figure this out together. You tell me which way you're leaning at the end of every episode, and maybe I was wrong, but I don't think so. I know my channel is usually shaped around the mafia, but I make it clear at the start of every single one of my videos that I never started this channel to specifically look at the mafia. I like looking at infamous criminals, and I may have a special leaning towards the mafia, but again, the same thing as Billy, it's certainly not all I do. I like looking at notorious gangsters, people that pull off crazy crimes and get away with it, people that go to jail for the rest of their life or die because of their crimes. I just find that super interesting. So yes, I have a special inclination towards the mafia. I had a personal tie to the mafia growing up, so that is something that I try to cover a little bit more just because personally I have family. That's all I'll say. They're all dead, but I have family. But yeah, this is not somebody in the mafia. We are going to talk a little bit about the mafia throughout this series, but he's not in the mafia, and I'm still going to talk about it because he's an infamous gangster, and I'm super interested in the whole case. I just want to know everything about it. Now, before I start this episode, this is going to be like a lot of parts. Honestly, at this point, I just find it so much easier to make multiple videos about one person. It's so much easier to fully research one person and find out like every single little detail than it is to have a new person every week. And then at the end of that week, have everybody in the comments saying you missed a million things, or you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about, everything is factually incorrect, blah, blah, blah. What do you expect? I can't cover an entire human being in one episode. So this is what we're doing now. We're gonna do 4 or 5, 6 parts of each person that I cover because I want to know everything there is to know about a person. As much as I was done and over Angelo Leonardo by the time I finished my episode on him, I really do feel like I got the most facts about him into those videos. They were really well researched, and I feel good about that. I've had a few people come onto those videos and say like, oh, there's so much wrong here. You don't know what you're talking about. And like, yeah, sure, I'm a human being. And as I say all the time, I get my information off the internet. If the internet says something and then I repeat it, the internet's wrong. I don't go to family and ask them questions. I don't get insider information. I will never, ever, you will never go through any of my videos and find one time that I say something that is not publicly available through Google. I am not somebody that's ever going to put somebody's personal business out there unless it's already out there. And Angelo Leonardo is a perfect example of that. I had so many friends and family of Angelo Leonardo that I was in constant contact with. I could have put a million different little personal secrets about him in those videos, and I did not put one. Not one. I did put an interview with one of his family members. I think it's his grandson. But you'll never catch me going to family of these gangsters and finding out information that they didn't already have public. I'm not a rat. I will never be a rat. I may cover rats, but that's not me, and take it or leave it, man. I do my best. This person that we're going to cover this time in this set of series, I have no idea how many episodes it's going to take, but I'm excited about this one. So this person that we're going to be covering in this set of series is O.J. Simpson. And the next person that we're going to cover is Anthony Center. Anthony Center is one half of the Gemini twins alongside Joey Testa, and he worked under Roy DeMeo. These guys were absolutely wild and pulled off some of the most heinous crimes imaginable. And the both of them were released from prison back in March of this year, real life. These guys were found guilty of their role in 11 murders, and they're walking around free as a bird right now. So we are going to go over that. So that is next, but because OJ did recently die, and there's this new documentary coming out about him, there's a lot of stuff coming out about him, I wanted to cover him first. So let's get into O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson, whose original name is Orenthal James Simpson. Yes, this is how he pronounces it. I know a lot of people say Orenthal, but he pronounces it Orenthal, or he pronounced it. He died recently. I know that's like spoiling the ending, but I mean, if you guys are living under a rock and didn't know O.J. died, I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you, but he did. So Orenthal James Simpson, the former NFL superstar turned infamous crime figure. I figure that the time is perfect. We just lost him recently. There's a bunch of different documentaries coming out, and we'll go through his life, his criminal career, and it's something that I'm actually really interested in, and I'm hoping that you guys are too. So OJ was born on July 9th, 1947 in San Francisco, California, and he had a very interesting upbringing. His parents, Eunice and Jimmy Lee Simpson, were both African American, and their marriage hit the rocks early on, leading to a divorce when OJ was a very young child. Now, his mom, Eunice, held it down as a hospital administrator or an orderly in the psychiatric ward at the nearby San Francisco General Hospital, and her job there kept the home running smoothly. She worked the graveyard shift, which means that she was leaving her kids home alone a lot by themselves, pretty often. The family, which consisted of his mom, him, and 3 siblings, moved into the old Navy barracks in San Francisco, which were converted into low-income housing when the Navy left them, or what would be considered as the projects. It's a little hard for me to consider it the projects just because, like, I'm from New York. I grew up with, like, those projects in the Bronx and Queens, and you know the ones. They're on every movie. Those are what I consider projects, but he refers to where he lived as the projects. He said multiple times that he's from the projects, so the old Navy Yard is the projects. His youngest sister, Carmelita, was born on September 14th, 1948, and she passed away on April 6th, 2009, at 61 years old. His older brother, Melvin Leon, was born on July 21st, 1946, and he died on September 8th, 2021, at 75 years old. Maddie Shirley Baker, his oldest sister, was born on June 4th, 1943, and she passed away on March 12th, 2023 at a whopping 80 years old. And with OJ dying in 2024, that means that all of these siblings have passed away at this point. I'm just going through these dates early on because honestly, I don't really talk about his siblings at all in this entire episode. His older sister, Shirley, she stood by him through all the drama and the crime and the trials, but his younger sister and his brother, they rarely get talked about in OJ's life. So that's his siblings and his mom, but then there's also his dad, Jimmy Lee, who was a very unique character himself. Not only did he work at the Federal Reserve Bank, but he was also a very well-known drag queen in the San Francisco Bay Area. He was known around town as Mama Simpson. I don't see anywhere that he was trans, or I would be referring to him as she, but from everything I see online, he just partook in like the drag queen society and he kept his given sex at birth and just identified as a gay man, so I am referring to him as he because he referred to himself as he. He wasn't really in OJ's life very much. He's referred to as an intermittent presence in OJ's life, and OJ resented him for it. He said in interviews that he really wanted and needed his dad in his life. And he did start to get a little bit closer with him as he got older, but it took a really long time to get there because of how hurt OJ was by his absence. Unfortunately, his father did pass away in 1985 or 1986. I don't really know which one. They're both equally reported, but he passed away of HIV or AIDS. Despite his challenges at home, OJ found his stride in sports, and he showed his talents off from a very young age. But it was not all smooth sailing. He faced a lot of physical hurdles too, dealing with rickets as a kid, and had leg braces on until he was 5 years old. The leg braces are what gave him the distinctive bow-legged look that was widely discussed throughout his career and criminal trials. Everybody knows the way that he walked was a little different. That's because he had rickets as a kid and he had braces on at 5 years old. As a kid, OJ hung out a lot at the Kezar Stadium in San Francisco, and while he was there, he was not just watching games. He was making money. OJ figures out that he can make some serious money scalping tickets, and he would even collect the seat cushions, which he would then flip for a profit. So he was making money. at these places. And I even heard him say at one point that he would go up to scalpers and like cry and say like, I really want to see this person play. And they would give it to him because they felt bad. And then he'd go like on the other side of the stadium and sell them. So he was a little hustler. In high school, OJ took his game to the next level. He wasn't just flipping tickets anymore. He's organizing school dances. He's hiring bands, booking ballrooms, and throwing epic parties, all while raking in money. In high school, he had a few really close friends that would end up being friends for life. One friend, Chuck Barnes, saw OJ's potential and started connecting him with some seriously important people. Another friend, Al Cowlings, was truly his ride or die. These guys were like real-life brothers. Al Cowlings was willing to put up with a whole lot from OJ, and he grinned and bared it as OJ just shit all over him. Like, I feel really bad for Al Cowlings. Now, OJ's life was not all like glitz and glam. It was not a good childhood. He grew up on Potrero Hill, and yeah, he even got mixed up in a street gang called the Persian Warriors. He and his friends said that they belonged to like a social club the way that like the mafia has social clubs, but it really was just a street gang. And once he joined them, things got really rough really quick. He was making some really bad choices and got into a lot of trouble. By this time, he was selling drugs on street corners on a regular basis. It was a dark time for him, and he found himself behind bars at the San Francisco Youth Guidance Center. Enter Willie Mays, baseball legend extraordinaire. After OJ found himself in legal trouble for the third time, ending up in juvenile hall for a full weekend for his involvement in a gang fight, he goes home, takes a nap, and when he wakes up, his childhood hero is downstairs talking to his mom. Like, can you imagine? At this time, Mays played for the San Francisco Giants, and he knew Lefty Gordon, a man who ran the community center that OJ played sports at. Gordon put Mays in touch with OJ, and Mays spent the afternoon and night with OJ. They went to a laundromat, and then Mays brought OJ to his home in St. Francis Hills, where OJ was able to sit in a meeting between Mays and a local charity organization. This is the day, right here, that OJ attributes as his reason to get off the streets. He said before this, he had envisioned people like Mays as giants, larger than life. But when he went to the laundromat and Mays' clothes weren't ready yet, he realized that he had the same problems that the rest of us do. He realized that celebrities are just human beings, and if they were capable of greatness, so was he. It didn't take any words of wisdoms, no lectures, no scared straight program, just the knowledge that he too could make something of himself if he applied himself. Inspired by his time with Willie, OJ decided to turn his life around. He put his focus on sports, especially football. Now, he's at Galileo Academy of Science and Technology, tearing it up on the field for the Galileo Lions. O.J. Simpson, in the midst of some tough times in high school, meets his childhood sweetheart, Marguerite. And let's just say, Marguerite did not have the best things to say about him back then. But let's take a moment here and let's go through how they actually met. Now, remember the ride or die that I talked about before, Al Cowlings? Well, OJ met Marguerite when Al started dating her. They were dating, going steady, she was wearing his jersey, like, whatever. They were serious. Not too long of a time goes by, and OJ takes Marguerite right out from under Al Cowlings' nose. Literally stole her. And now, Al did not take this lying down. OJ showed up at a party with Marguerite, and Al Cowlings was like shaking the car, trying to get to them. But a few weeks later, all three were seen hanging out together. So like, this is what I mean when I say that Al was willing to put up with absolutely anything to remain friends and brothers and close with OJ while OJ just shit all over him. They kept being friends, and Al would be a huge part of OJ's life for the rest of his life. And it was kind of swept under the rug that Marguerite was Al Cowlings' girlfriend first. And let's be real here, I feel like OJ is the epitome of, with friends like these, who needs enemies? Al was so ride or die for him that there was a story that a couple of OJ's friends had pulled a gun on OJ as a prank. And Al stepped in front of OJ and said that they would have to shoot him first. And this is how OJ repays him. So whatever, OJ's already a shitty human, but they get out of high school and now they're moving on to college. Now, OJ is tearing it up on the football field, but his grades, let's just say he wasn't exactly making the honor roll. Because of this, he ended up at the City College of San Francisco, and this is where he starts to make a real name for himself on the football field. At City College, OJ was a force to be reckoned with. He played both offense and defense, and he did both positions very well. He even snagged a spot on the junior college All-American team as a running back. City College won the Prune Bowl against Long Beach State, and suddenly, everyone is talking about OJ Simpson. Colleges are lining up down the block to recruit him, and he has all of a sudden now got a lot of big decisions to make. OJ's weighing his options if he wants to go to USC or Utah. But in the end, he ends up going with his gut and chooses USC, a school that he had been eyeing since he was like a little kid. And that sets the stage for OJ Simpson's next big chapter. In the late 60s, OJ Simpson is rocking the cardinal and gold as a running back for the USC Trojans. And he's not just blending in, he is standing out big time. Under the legendary coach John McKay, OJ starts making some serious waves in the football scene. Fast forward to 1967, and he's got his eyes set on the Heisman Trophy, the holy grail of college football awards. He missed out on snagging the Heisman Trophy in 1967, but that's okay, don't get upset. He walked home with the trophy the very next year in 1968. And we will talk about that Heisman Trophy again in the future, so remember that he did win the Heisman Trophy in 1968. In 1967, he took home the Walter Camp Award, basically crowning him as the best college football player in the entire nation. OJ's talent is off the charts. As a two-time consensus All-American, this guy was unstoppable. And his talents were not just confined to football either. He had some serious speed on the track, too. So now, let's talk about his transition from college football to the big leagues, the NFL. Because a lot of people can be amazing at college football and just completely tank in the NFL. I don't know, I'm not a football fan, but I have heard that this transition can just completely destroy some people that were gigantic in college and they get to the NFL and they're just trash. So after OJ went to USC and did as well as he did, ended up with the Heisman Trophy, got all these awards, he is on everybody's radar. When the AFL's Buffalo Bills snagged him as their top pick in the 1969 draft, it was a game changer. OJ wanted to make history, demanding to be the highest paid player in sports with a jaw-dropping $650,000 over 5 years. Now, I know that sounds like chump change nowadays. We look at the millions and millions of dollars that sports players are paid, but again, remember, he is the highest paid player in all of sports with this contract. So it's a lot of money for somebody that plays professional football. Now, when he brought this up to the Bills owner, Ralph Wilson, he wasn't exactly jumping at the idea. He really didn't want anything to do with it. There was a standoff where OJ even threatened to leave football and go do an acting career. And there was a while there that Ralph Wilson was like, go ahead, I'm not paying you $650,000 for 5 years. I'm not doing it. But OJ held his ground, and eventually Wilson caved, and he did meet his demands. And OJ got $650,000 over 5 years. Now, with the contract drama behind him, OJ steps onto the professional football field with a weight of expectations on his shoulders. Now, remember what I said, there has been a lot of players that go from college football into the NFL, and they just tank. They cannot do it. I don't know what the disconnect is, but there is one. And NFL is completely different than college football. So when he's taking his first step onto the NFL field, he knows that it's a possibility that he will just be trash. But it's very unlikely because honestly, OJ isn't trash at anything. So let's stop here and talk about OJ Simpson's journey into acting. Back in the days that he was at USC, he got into acting and even scored a small gig on a classic TV show called Dragnet. This little scene where he wasn't even credited at the end of the show would jumpstart his acting career. Even as his football career took off, OJ did not let go of his passion for acting. He really wanted to be an actor. The fact that he became a pro actor before ever stepping foot onto an NFL football field was how he was so easily able to negotiate a huge contract when he first signed on to the NFL. All of his hopes and dreams weren't riding on the NFL like most other people transitioning from college to NFL. He easily could have walked away and got into acting. And when you have something like that, it's so much easier to negotiate when you have nothing to lose and you're in a win-win situation. Honestly, I tell people this all the time. The easiest way that you can get advancement in your career is to have two places fighting over you. I have a really high yearly salary right now, and I did not get there by sticking with one company for a long amount of time. I've never been able to get huge raises by just staying at one place. And I have put my job on the table as a negotiating tool time and time and time again. The last time I did that, I got a $50,000 per year raise in one day. And it was only that much because I liked my job and I was comfortable and I didn't want to leave. The other job that was trying to hire me and get me to leave the job I was currently at was offering me a raise of $160,000 a year, plus bonus incentives. But at the time, I was really scared to leave my current job. I didn't want to leave because I knew that I would always have a job at the place that I was at. Like, literally, the entire industry could be made illegal overnight, and that boss would have made sure that I had a job at another company that he owned. And I was terrified to leave that. That was the company that I ended up staying in until I left to go into the Army. And that salary gave me the jumping point to get to where I am now. And I ended up getting another $15K raise from there. The point of that is whenever you're in a situation where you don't really mind, you like both things. In my case, it was I liked the job that I was at. I liked the job that was trying to get me to come on. In OJ's case, he was in a situation where he could go to the NFL or he could go into acting. And either one would have made him equally happy. Honestly, I think he wanted to go into acting more. But when you're in a win-win situation like that, where if you stay at your job, you'll be happy because you'll get a raise at the end. Or if you end up leaving your job for the other job, you'll get a raise and you'll get a new scene and everything will be great. You're in a great situation. You're in a win-win situation. Don't ever let yourself get too comfortable at a job that you don't fight for yourself and take advantage of other opportunities. Make sure you're getting raises. Like, if your boss isn't fighting to keep you, go find a company that will fight to keep you. I promise you, if you go out there and find another job at a higher pay, you'll walk out of those negotiations happy no matter what happens. So let's jump back over to OJ. From that point, OJ jumped into TV and movies like a pro. He made his debut in Medical Center, which was the first time that he was credited, but not the first time that he was an actor on anything. He made uncredited appearances in It Takes a Thief, Ironside, The Name of the Game, and Death of a Gunfighter. All in 1968. 1 year. He did 5 movies and TV shows. And that's while he was still sorting out his contract with the Buffalo Bills. So he's got a lot going on in 68. Once he was in the NFL, he did not slow down. He got big roles in groundbreaking series like Roots, and starred in movies like The Klansman, The Towering Inferno, and a bunch of other TV shows and movies. And he wasn't just coasting by. He was serious about his craft in acting. He studied under legends like Lee Marvin and Richard Burton. OJ had huge dreams. He wanted to win an Oscar or an Emmy. He wanted to be the best of the best in NFL and the best of the best in acting. Now fast forward to the 70s, and he is still just a monster on the field, but now he's also popping up in commercials. He has this deal with Hertz, the car rental place, and he pretty much brought that company way up. Like, they were already a company when they signed him, but the relationship between Hertz and OJ, it skyrocketed both parties up to the frickin' moon. And a lot of times, people that have another career will have problems when they go into acting because they're trying to keep this, like, clean-cut athlete image. And OJ was not sticking by those rules. He wanted to show off his acting chops, so he took roles in anything but predictable, run-of-the-mill things that you would see an NFL player in. He played complex characters that challenged perceptions of him as a person, as a sports member, overall. Now fast forward to the 80s, and OJ is hitting the big screens in comedic gold like Back to the Beach and appearing in the Naked Gun trilogy as Detective Norberg. He's also making waves in sports broadcasting, bringing his charm and charisma to Monday Night Football and the NFL on NBC. And on top of all that, he made a cameo on Saturday Night Live and hosted the entire Saturday Night Live episode. So now that we've gotten his success and everything that he was able to accomplish down, let's go talk about his family life. So when he was 19 years old, he tied the knot with Marguerite L. Whitley, the one that he stole from Al Cowlings, on June 24th, 1967, and together these two had 3 kids. Arnell in 1968, Jason Lamar in 1970, and Aaron LaShawn Simpson on September 24th, 1977. Tragedy struck the Simpson family in 1979 when their youngest daughter, Aaron, tragically drowned in the family pool. It was a devastating blow that shocked the Simpson family to their core, changing them forever. Aaron, a little girl that was less than 2 years old, was being babysat by her older brother, Jason, when Aaron took a walk around the house and fell into the family's swimming pool. She was alive, but unconscious when they found her, and after performing CPR, EMTs transported her to the University of California Medical Center. She stayed there on life support for days, but she passed away from respiratory failure on August 26, 1979. She hadn't even made it to her 2nd birthday. She was buried at the Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City in Los Angeles. Now, although OJ is at the peak of his celebrity at the time, they had a small, private ceremony and only very close family and friends were invited to this ceremony. Anybody that sent donations to the family or any kind of monetary things for Aaron was funneled through as a donation made in her name to UCLA. Now, here's where things get a little complicated. While he was still married to Marguerite, OJ met Nicole Brown, a waitress at a nightclub. Despite being married, OJ and Nicole's connection grew, and they started dating while he was still married to Marguerite. Eventually, OJ and Marguerite divorced in March of 1979, months before Aaron's death, and that divorce cleared the way for him to pursue a totally new relationship with Nicole, and to do so a lot more openly. Since they divorced, Marguerite has always adamantly denied that OJ abused her in any way, shape, or form. However, only a few days ago, a documentary came out in which she is finally, in 2024, and after OJ is already dead, finally, it's coming out that he did beat her. And she's still denying it, but it's coming out that it happened. It's also said that OJ blamed Aaron's death on Marguerite, which is like super weird to me because I'm pretty sure Aaron died at OJ's house, but he still blamed Marguerite. And it was even said that when they were at the hospital for Aaron, OJ lunged at Marguerite and like went after her at the hospital, blaming her for Aaron's death. Okay, so let's take a look at Nicole Brown's background. She was born on May 19th, 1959 in Frankfurt, West Germany, in a pretty diverse family. Her mom, Juditha Anna Judy Brown, was from Germany, and her dad, Louis Hezekiah Lou Brown Jr., was an American. Nicole was the second of 4 daughters. She had sisters named Denise, Dominique, and Tanya. And from her dad's previous marriage, she also has 2 half-sisters named Wendy and Margaret. Plus, she has a half-brother named Tracy. We're being joined, if you can't see. Now, when Nicole moved to the United States, she went to Rancho Alamitos High School in Garden Grove, California, before graduating from Dana Hills High School in Dana Point in 1976. In 1977, Nicole, an 18-year-old waitress, met O.J. Simpson, who was 30 years old at the time, and already a big shot football player, actor, TV personality. Like, this man was already well established and, like, out there. The age gap, it's not weird at all. Not at all. There definitely isn't any kind of power dynamics at play. A man 12 years older than her and insanely rich and powerful already. No, this 18-year-old waitress is definitely equipped for this relationship already. Definitely. Why not? They met at a trendy, upscale restaurant that Nicole was working at the time. Remember, though, when he met Nicole, he's already married. But hey, that doesn't stop these two from falling head over heels in love. Despite the complications like, the wife, their connection just kept growing. Fast forward to 1979, and OJ decides to file for divorce from his first wife. That's a pretty huge move, and it shows just how serious he was about Nicole. This is a huge turning point in their relationship, and it's the beginning of a new chapter for them because now they can publicly be out in the open as a couple, where before they had to kind of hide it because he was married and he is OJ Simpson, so like the tabloids are following him around, and if he gets caught with Nicole, it's gonna be front page news. So now that him and Marguerite are divorced, this is a whole new world. OJ and Nicole tied the knot on February 2nd, 1985, which was just wrought with controversy. Like, the media did not like this relationship. First of all, it's an interracial relationship, and that 1985 doesn't seem that long ago, but it is so long ago when it comes to like race relations and tolerances and stuff. Like, 1985, they had no qualms getting on TV and talking shit about the fact that OJ had married a white girl. Like, it was very, very, very frowned upon at the time. There was a lot of talk as well about their age difference, and rightfully so. She's 18 years old. He's 30. She's a waitress. He's a pro football player and actor. Like, these two are not on the same level. But by 1985, when they finally tied the knot, she's 25 years old, and honestly, I think the way they looked at it was like, we've been together 7 years. If the media doesn't like it, they can get fucked. I don't care. They started hanging out in 1978. It is now 1985. At this point, I mean, they're together. There's nothing different. I mean, it is what it is at this point. Their marriage brought 2 adorable kids into this world. Sydney in 1985 and Justin in 1988. So now that puts OJ at 5 kids, 4 living between 2 women. But things take a dark turn pretty quickly. Behind the scenes, the marriage between these two isn't as perfect as they tried to make it seem. According to Dr. Lenore Walker, a psychologist, the relationship showed signs of domestic abuse very early on. All the signs were there. All the red flags were waving. Red flags on the play everywhere. He had no issue being aggressive with her, and furthermore, he had no issue doing it in public. She came home from her first date with OJ with ripped jeans. When her friend Dave asked what happened, she said that he was just a little bit forceful, but that she still really liked him. While he was still married, and after their first date but before their second date, OJ had already told Nicole that he was planning to get her an apartment and a car. So he's flexing his power, he's flexing his money, and I mean, it's clear you have this young, vulnerable girl and a rich, older man. Honestly, it happens. I don't know. Look at Leo DiCaprio. Leo DiCaprio is like 50, and dude just started dating this girl that's like 18 years old. They do that. I don't know. To make matters worse, reports suggest that Nicole had signed a prenup before marrying OJ, which had a huge limit on her financial independence and her freedom. You can't just go get a job as a waitress as the wife of an NFL player. She couldn't go get a job. So now she's completely, fully financially dependent on this man. She wasn't allowed to work while they were married. And that put her in a very, very difficult situation. And let's be real, she's not the first and she's not the last girl to be put in this situation. So, I mean, I'm sure she was looking at other professional people, professional actors, professional football players that have had this exact same thing play out. And I'm sure she was like, you know, it's fine. It sucks, but it's fine. So now let's talk about Nicole's bravery in opening up about her abusive marriage to OJ Simpson. It's a tough story to hear. This entire series is going to be really tough to hear, but it's an important one, honestly. Nicole went through some seriously tough times behind closed doors. She faced a lot of physical and emotional abuse from OJ, and because she was financially dependent on him, it made things a lot harder. She couldn't just leave. To be fair, she did have parents. She had parents, she had siblings, she could have gone there. But at the same time, now you're in a situation where you have kids, you have no money because you're not allowed to work, and all of it is your husband's, so it's not so easy to just pick up and leave. Like, there's a reason that people stay in domestic violence situations, and it's not because they're stupid. It's not because, oh, well, I would never allow that to happen to me. Like, no, it's not like that. It's very hard to leave, especially when you have someone that's as high profile as OJ Simpson. And if you leave, it's going to be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. The first mention of Nicole being abused by OJ in her diary was in 1978. Remember, they only met in 1977, and OJ didn't divorce his wife until 1979. So he's already abusing this girl before he's even divorced from his first wife. Some really concerning journal entries that we see in Nicole's diaries are, number 1, she writes, "We went to Sherry Netland Hotel, where he continued to beat me for hours as I kept crawling for the door. He called my mother a whore, pretended to call her and tell her that. He hit me while he fucked me." The second entry says, "Beat me up so bad at home. Tore my blue sweater and blue slacks completely off me. Went to the hospital and claimed it to be a bicycle accident." And the third entry says, "Hawaii gay man kisses Justin. OJ threw me against the walls in our hotel and onto the floor. Put bruises on my arms and back. The window scared me. Thought he'd throw me out of it." And the abuse did not just stay behind closed doors. It happened in public, in front of friends, family, everywhere. Nicole reached out to law enforcement for help 8 times. But sadly, they only arrested OJ 1 of those times. Nicole started keeping diaries that chronicled all the abuse that she suffered, because no matter how many times she stood up and spoke out about the abuse, no matter how many times she called the cops and said, "I want him arrested," no matter what she did, nobody really paid her any mind because of how well OJ was liked. What a hero he was. Like, no, someone that plays football this good could never beat their wife. Like, that couldn't happen. You're a liar. So she started keeping journals. And again, I'll say this isn't the first or last story of an NFL player or actor abusing the shit out of their wives, and the public calling the wife a liar and ignoring the woman because the man is so doted on and loved by the public. This may be the one that ended the most brutally, though. Some of the entries into these diaries have been made public since her murder. In these entries, she predicts exactly what is going to happen to her. She talks about how scared she is, how she fears for her life, and how she knows, not thinks, knows that he will kill her one day. She even told family and friends that one day he would kill her, and not just that he'd get away with it when he did. Not if, when. According to the diary entries, the beating started as early as 1978, when he beat her up in probably one of the most public areas that exists in this world, a New York City street corner. Finally, in 1992, after they had been married for 7 years and together for 14, if I'm correct, Nicole made the incredibly brave decision to file for divorce from OJ, citing irreconcilable differences. And this was a huge step in taking back control of her life and breaking free from the abuse that she had endured for years. She was determined to become an independent person, separate from OJ, separate from the abuse that she had endured for the last 14 years. She wanted to make it on her own. Even after their marriage ended, Nicole could not escape OJ's control. She faced relentless stalking, harassment, and even threats from OJ. One really disturbing moment was when OJ spied on Nicole while she was with her new boyfriend. She was seeing this dude, and OJ showed up at her house the next day while this dude was still there and described to her the sex that she had had with this dude the night before. He literally watched her having sex with this dude through the windows and then showed up at the house while the dude was still there the next day and told her about it. And it didn't stop there. OJ allegedly threatened to kill Nicole if he ever found out that she was with another man. That's the kind of fear that kept Nicole living in constant terror and fear for her life, leading her to take drastic steps like drafting a will to protect herself and her loved ones. Things got so bad for her that she felt that she had no choice but to seek refuge at a women's shelter called Sojourn. On June 8th, 1994, so 2 years after they had been divorced, things are still so bad that she has to go to a women's shelter. She was terrified of what OJ might do to her, especially since she refused his attempts to reconcile the marriage. He wanted to get back together with her. He had another girlfriend. He was seeing girls left and right, but he wanted Nicole. He wanted to have her. He wanted to be with her. He wanted to have control over her, and he made that clear to her, and she wanted nothing to do with it. She was like, screw that. I just finally got out. You abused the shit out of me. I'm done. I'm not coming back. And that put her in more danger. And honestly, like, It is absolutely heartbreaking to think of the kind of fear that this woman must have been living with every single day. The fact that you go to a women's shelter 2 years after you officially divorced from your husband, like, that's some intense shit, man. Now, knowing all of this, it isn't surprising that it is now coming out that Marguerite, too, suffered years and years of abuse. An LAPD officer, Terry Shower, says on a documentary that he responded to a call from a screaming woman years ago. And when he showed up to the scene, Marguerite said that she didn't want to press charges, even though she had clearly been beaten by OJ. She said that he struck her and pulled out some of her hair, and he could visually see a clump of hair on the floor. But she wouldn't press charges, so there was nothing they could do. Later on, Richard Deandra, another LAPD officer, responded to another call where Marguerite called the police as she's being beaten by OJ. When the police arrived, she ran out of the house holding her face, which was swollen and bloodied. But again, she didn't press charges because she kept saying, "I don't want to ruin his career." Now, knowing what comes next, it isn't surprising that Marguerite shut her mouth and adamantly denied any kind of abuse at OJ's hands. It doesn't surprise me at all, because Marguerite is alive today, and Nicole isn't. This is all coming out on June 1st, 2024, from a Lifetime documentary called The Life and Murder of Nicole Brown Simpson. Even with it coming out in this new documentary that she was almost certainly abused too, Marguerite still to this day denies that she has ever suffered any abuse at OJ's hands. Which is wild because he's dead. But I could see why. I could see if she ever came forward and said, like, yeah, I did experience that, everybody would get on her. Oh, if you would have opened your mouth, Nicole would have been alive today. Like, I don't blame her for not wanting to become a public victim. I get it. There's nothing wrong. If you suffer abuse, like, it is not your job to prevent that person from ever committing a crime again. That is not on you. It is not your job. I'm a firm believer that people who choose to not report things, it doesn't suddenly become their responsibility when somebody reoffends and does something bad to the next person. That is not your job. Maybe the cop should have done something the first 7 times Nicole called the police. Like, that doesn't fall back on Marguerite. That's on a lot of people, and Marguerite is not one of them. All right, let's talk about the crime that catapulted OJ into the stratosphere and made him one of the most famous people in America ever. It's June 12th, 1994, and we're talking about a night that changed everything. Nicole Brown Simpson and OJ Simpson, despite being at their daughter Sydney's dance recital, they're worlds apart. They're at different sides of the gym. They don't speak to each other. They don't look at each other. They want nothing to do with each other. After the show, Brown and her crew head to Mezzaluna for dinner, and they leave OJ out of the plans. They want nothing to do with him joining, even though it's also his daughter. But, I mean, I don't blame her for wanting nothing to do with this man. Ron Goldman, a waiter at the restaurant, actually knew Nicole. They had become friends over the weeks leading up to this evening, and Ron became somebody that Nicole could confide in about the crazy-ass behaviors that OJ was exhibiting. Not very many people wanted to hear that he was abusive, that he was doing things wrong, because everybody idolized him, but Ron, he listened. He wasn't the one serving the table that night, but he did stop by the table and say hello. The evening of June 12th, 1994, it's going pretty normal. They went to the recital, they went to have dinner at Mezzaluna, and Nicole and her kids went to grab some ice cream at Ben & Jerry's after Mezzaluna. Just like your typical family outing, just a typical day in America. Around 9:37 p.m., Brown's mom calls Mezzaluna asking about some glasses that she had misplaced. And this is just one of those little everyday moments that you don't think twice about. Just trying to find a pair of glasses. It's not something that should be significant, but it is. The manager at Mezzaluna goes above and beyond, tracks down the glasses, and puts them in a white envelope. And guess who is on delivery duty? None other than Ron Goldman, the waiter that knows Nicole. So now fast forward to 9:50 p.m. Goldman is wrapping up his shift, and he has the envelope in his hand, ready to drop it off at Brown's place, and shows up around 10 p.m. at Nicole's place. While Nicole Brown Simpson and her family were out and about, Simpson's evening took quite a different turn. So instead of going to the dance recital and then going to dinner at Mezzaluna, Simpson was reportedly hanging out at home, chowing down on some McDonald's with his buddy Cato Caitlin, who was crashing in Simpson's guest house at the time. At 9:36, OJ and Cato Caitlin returned to OJ's home in Rockingham after a trip to McDonald's. This is the point where Cato and OJ part ways. There was a lot of rumors flying around at the time about Simpson's behavior that night, with a lot of people suggesting that he may have used drugs. There's even some talk about a shady character named JR, supposedly selling crystal meth to both Simpson and Caitlin. If that's true, it could shed a whole new light on what went down that night. And then something weird happens, because later, afterwards, they're questioning OJ and they're questioning Cato Caitlin, and both of them are not keeping their story straight. OJ said at first that he went to McDonald's, but then he said Burger King. And it's just another thing that starts to not add up when he's explaining where he was during that night and what he was doing while Nicole was being slaughtered. According to neighbors' accounts, things started getting weird around 10:15 when they heard constant barking coming from Brown's place. Then, around 10:55 p.m., a dog walker from the neighborhood stumbled upon Brown's Akita out in the street, barking like crazy and looking like it got beat up pretty badly. The poor thing had blood on its legs, which must have been super alarming for the person finding it. The dog walker goes home and the dog follows the dog walker home. But now the dog walker is like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this dog? So the dog walker goes to bring the Akita back to the house. But when he tried to take it back to Brown's place, the Akita refused. And if you watch TikTok, you know Akitas, Shepherds, Huskies, they're all kind of dogs that do their own thing. You cannot make those dogs do what they don't want to do. And that Akita did not want to go back to that property. And that's when the neighbor knew that something was not right. So the dog walker's neighbor steps in and offers to help by washing the Akita for the night. But the dog is just really agitated. Something is wrong with this dog. This is not a normal Akita's behavior. So they decided to take it back to the house where they found it. When they got close to Brown's house around midnight that night, the Akita just stopped dead in its tracks. Again, would not go to the house. It knew something was up. It would not go near that house. That's when the dog walker and the neighbor spotted Nicole Brown Simpson's body lying outside the house. Obviously, they called police, and when police showed up, they found not only Nicole Brown's body, but they also found Ron Goldman's body nearby. The whole sequence of events leading up to the discovery of these bodies, it's a really tragic picture of what went down that night. At the scene, the front door is wide open, but there's no signs of forced entry at the residence. Nicole's body was found sprawled face down at the bottom of the stairs, with no shoes on, and the walkway is covered in blood. Like, covered. But the weird thing is, her feet were clean. Now picture an area completely covered in blood. You would think that there would be blood on the bottom of her feet, but there wasn't. It was like she was dragged to the location that her body was at after she was attacked, which means that she was the prime target. And the wounds that she suffered were brutal. She had multiple stab wounds to the head and neck. If you see these pictures, it is horrifying. I am not including pictures of this crime scene because this is YouTube and I'm really tired of my videos being restricted. So if you want to see those pictures of these brutal wounds, go check them out on Google. I don't recommend it. I don't know if I'll ever be the same after seeing them myself. I don't recommend it, but if you want to see it, Google is your best friend. There were no defensive wounds on Nicole's hands, which suggests that she didn't even get a chance to defend herself. But what's even more disturbing is the final blow, a deep cut to her neck, severing her carotid artery. When people refer to Nicole's injuries, they talk about how OJ cut her head off. And while it's not actually cut off, the cut was definitely deep enough that you could tell there was definitely some overkill going on here. It did not need to be that deep. There's also a bruise on her back with a footprint on her clothes. The cops give the theory that the attacker came back after going and killing Ron Goldman, stepped on her back, grabbed her by the head, and did the deed. The injuries that Nicole suffered were just unimaginable. Her larynx was visible through the wound in her neck, and her vertebrae were cut through. So it makes sense why people say that he cut her head off. he pretty much did. Ron Goldman's body was found near a tree, stabbed multiple times in both the body and the neck. The blow to his abdomen was ultimately what ended his life. The coroner's report suggests that the attacker held Goldman in a chokehold while stabbing him multiple times with the other hand. The theory is that Nicole was killed first, and when Ron came on the scene with Nicole's mom's glasses in his hand, he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Around Goldman's body, they found a few pieces of evidence. They found a blue knit cap, a left-handed glove, and they found the envelope with the glasses that Ron had been sent by the restaurant to deliver. The envelope had a bloody footprint on it. Now, detectives come to the scene and they start putting the pieces together, figuring out that Goldman was at Nicole Brown Simpson's house at the time of her murder, which is why he became a victim as well. After the murder, the killer did not bolt from the scene. They walked away, didn't run, clearly walked, leaving a trail of bloody shoe prints behind. Some of those footprints had drops of blood alongside them, which a lot of people suggested was a sign that the killer had been injured too. And the drops of blood were on the left side of the body. So everybody said there was an injury that was given to the killer on the left side of the body. Now, this doesn't surprise me for a few reasons. Number one, I have a PI for the murder that I have been trying to solve. And the first day that I talked to that PI, he told me that there would most certainly be DNA evidence at the scene because most of the time when someone commits a murder, their hand slides off the grip of the knife and goes onto the blade itself. That cuts them, and that's how a lot of killers get caught with DNA because the knife cuts their hand during the attack. Another reason it doesn't surprise me that he's injured is that Ron Goldman is a black belt. Like, that man can hold his own. He had defensive wounds. It doesn't surprise me that the person that killed him was hurt. On the other hand, I personally feel like it's possible that these drops of blood could have just been the killer carrying the bloody knife away from the scene, which was dripping blood. But I don't see that ever mentioned as a possibility. So I'm sure that there's something wrong with this theory, but I don't see why people don't talk about that more often. Like, if you're walking away from the scene and you have a bloody knife in your hand, is it crazy that blood would drip from the knife? Why does nobody ever mention that? All right, guys, this is where I'm going to end part one. Don't worry, there is going to be plenty of parts here. We're going to go through all the theories. We're going to talk about what makes everybody think that OJ did it. We'll go through the trial, the race relations in America that made this trial so significant, and the things that each side did horribly wrong. We'll also go through a lot of alternate theories, such as the theory that it was his son, Jason, that actually committed these murders. The theory that the American Mafia had a hand in her death. And there's a few others that we're going to go through. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment, follow, do all the things, and come back for part two. I'll see you next time. Bye.